This is Defenders TV Podcast, episode 31, looking at Marvel's Jessica Jones, season 1, episode 1, aka Ladies' Night. Welcome back, Defenders, and welcome to Defenders TV Podcast, episode 31, where we are taking a look at Marvel's Jessica Jones, episode 1, aka Ladies' Night. And what a fab night or early morning it has been watching and finally getting round to watching Jessica Jones. I am one of your hosts, John.
And I'm Derek. Yeah, we've been waiting a while for this one. And yeah, we got up at 8 o'clock in the morning to watch it as it was released worldwide on November 20th.
Hi guys, I'm Chris, back again from the dead. I took a short break while the guys filled in for me, thank God.
Right.
So here I am, and I'm ready to kind of give my feedback on Jessica Jones, and it's going to be interesting.
Absolutely. So, guys, what did you think? Derek, what was your first impressions of this episode?
Well, first impressions for me is finally we can talk about it. We saw this episode at New York Comic Con, as some of our regular listeners will know, which was on October 6th, I think. It was around that time. So we've had about a month and a half to digest this episode and not talk to anybody about it, because we were told by Jeff Loeb under penalty of death not to tell anybody what happened in the episode. And wow, this is just as shocking as it was back then. It's a fantastic and really different version of a Netflix Marvel show. I think you guys will probably agree with me on that. There's definitely a lot of differences here.
Yeah, from my side, to let our listeners know, I didn't join our two other Defender co-hosts at New York Comic Con. For me, this was my first time sitting in, and I was going in very much blind. Amazon hadn't delivered my Alias kind of graphic novels, so it was. If all went to plan, it should have arrived on the 19th. I would have then had half a day to read it at night, and then going in fresh, like I know the whole story. But no, that didn't happen. So I went in blind. All I had watched was the trailer, and myself and Derek were discussing it just before we were recording, that I didn't even watch the opening theme, which they had released about 12 hours before the show went live.
That's right.
Because I listened to like about 10 seconds and went, no, I get enough.
Right.
So this was very spoiler free, going in blind, and wow, that's kind of where my head is at the moment. It's a hell of a lot more intense straight away. It's more psychological. It's darker, even though it's brighter than Daredevil. It's a different show. This is not a show for you to sit down with your 2-year-old and 5-year-old and go, oh, look, it's some superheroes. This is a mummy and daddy show.
Absolutely, absolutely. And just one other thing I want to bring in from New York Comic Con, there was an interview with Marco Ramirez, who was the head showrunner for season 2 of Daredevil. And what he said was when they did Daredevil, they had no idea what the appetite for this adult kind of show would be. They were wondering whether anybody would be interested in it or whether it would get criticized for kind of changing the Marvel brand into an adult brand. And now they know from the reaction, and again, they're not talking about numbers or number of people who watched it, but they know from the reaction that there's definitely an appetite out there. So I wonder whether there was something that played into Jessica Jones out of this and actually gave it more of an adult feel than they originally may have thought.
Well, yeah, exactly. And what I think now is, some of our listeners who are also comic book readers will remember that Marvel about 10 years ago now, did the Max series.
That's right.
And there was the adult over 18s. They did Supreme Power, which is the Squadron Supreme. They did a number of Daredevil, Punisher.
They did Fury, with Nick Fury, my favorite character, being all adultized.
Yeah, and I think that's I think this is what Netflix is going to be. It's going to be the MCU for over 18s.
Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know whether I would want to see what a Max Iron Fist would, how that would actually come out. That could be, like, really troublesome for Marvel to do, I would say.
Could be.
But,
lucrative in merchandising.
certainly. But, definitely this is more darker definitely in a psychological way. Daredevil had its violence, the head in the car door scene, all that kind of stuff. This is still violent, but from a psychological way and darker. And then also, I agree, like, the adult element extends not only to that, but also just, I think, to sort of the relationships and how sexual they are, and how real they feel. It feels really grown up and really good. I mean, one thing I would say as well is that this episode really took its time to build it. I mean, you know, it is different from Daredevil. Daredevil, for me, the first episode landed and it was right up the straight in kind of thing. Whereas this really felt as though it took its time, leading to obviously that amazing ending that was both cruel and disturbing, and which we'll probably come to in some of our points. But for those of you who are listening to us for the first time, each of us will take 5 points. Sometimes they will overlap and cross over, and we'll discuss elements of the episode within that 5-point structure. And that's the basis of our podcasts. And again, the release schedule that we'll be doing for these podcasts is we will get 2 up today, the 20th of November, the first 2 episodes of Jessica Jones. We'll be aiming to get a 3rd episode, the discussion of episode 3, up on Sunday. And then after that, we will be releasing a podcast on each of the episodes of Jessica Jones once a week, landing on a Tuesday for you to look at and subscribe to. And if you want to find us, we are on defenderstvpodcast.com/iTunes, or you can find us on any other good podcast catcher. Just search Defenders TV Podcast and subscribe in any other good podcast catcher, Android podcast catcher, such as Player FM, Podcast Addict, and Stitcher.
Yeah, absolutely. And hopefully Google Play Music when it gets released in Europe in the next couple of months. And we definitely want to hear from you. We have got some feedback, which we'll be talking about later on in the episode after we've discussed our points. Please send your feedback in to us as you watch the episodes. A lot of people are watching them in different orders. People right now are watching probably episode 3, I think, right now. They'll be finished way before we have our second podcast date. But we want to hear your thoughts on the episodes as you watch them. Send those into feedback@defenderstvpodcast.com. You can also join our group on Facebook, where there is some discussions going on about the episodes as we go. Just look for Defenders TV Podcast over on Facebook. Join the group. We'll accept you pretty quickly, and then you can pop in your thoughts. You can also join our page on Facebook, which will generally just be news and the postings of our episodes. Much more fun to join the group. And again, you can follow us on Twitter, where we will be putting up no spoilers for the episodes as we go, but our Twitter handle is DefendersCast. Follow us on there for some discussions as we go.
Absolutely. And we have been running a competition following our trip to New York Comic Con. We've got a whole range of different posters and comics and goodies that we got from New York Comic Con. And the competition was to leave reviews for us on iTunes or any other good podcast catcher where they have a review section. And so we will, at the end of this episode, we will be pulling the names out of the big woolly hat for the winner, who will get a load of posters: Agent Carter, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Jessica Jones, Daredevil Season 2. There's the transitionary comic done by Brian Michael Bendis and Michael Gaydos, who did the Alias graphic novels. That transitional comic between Daredevil and Jessica Jones, that's there as well. And we will send that on to you for whoever is lucky enough to have been pulled out of the hat. Plus, what we do have is a few more of those comics, which we'll also send to a few other people that we pull out of the hat as well, as an extra little goodie, and to say a thank you, obviously, for taking part in the competition, getting involved, and leaving a review for us on iTunes. Thank you so much, but we will come to that towards the end of the episode.
Yeah, absolutely. As John said, thanks so much to the listeners who've been listening to us right the way through from Daredevil, which we started in April, I believe. Really enjoyable.
That's so long ago.
I know. We're up to episode 31 now. Lots of episodes, and lots of listeners have been really, really good.
Yeah, and Agent Carter as well, and also some of the great Marvel films and not so great Marvel films that have come out this year as well.
Yeah, but without further ado, I think it's time for us to get on to our episode discussion. As John mentioned, this episode is episode 1 of Jessica Jones, which is AKA Ladies' Night, a nice little reference to Ladies' Night in Luke's Dive Bar, and this episode of Jessica Jones. This episode was written by Melissa Rosenberg Rosenberg, who's the showrunner for Jessica Jones. Fantastically written. I think we'll all agree as we go through. It was directed by S.J. Clarkson. John, do you want to let us know what we got with your synopsis?
Jessica Jones is a former superhero, a lady trying to rebuild her life after a troubled history. Now, as a private investigator with special abilities, Jessica Jones has a keen sense of self-loathing, a love for whiskey, sarcasm, late mornings, and the local barman, Luke Cage. And now she has a new case to work. Hired to track down a vanished university student by her parents, Jessica's investigation increasingly takes her down a dark track, as a shadowy, complex figure from her past takes her beyond a missing persons case to a disturbing and brutal reality. What does he want?
Thanks for that, John. Lots going on in that episode. That was pretty spoiler-free. Just a reminder to all of our listeners, obviously, we've watched this episode. Hopefully, you've watched the episode. From now on, we will be spoiler-filled all the way through as we go through our 5 points on this episode. And with that thought, Chris, do you want to give us your first point?
Yeah, so I suppose the elephant in the room that we need to talk about in a good way is the style, art direction, tonality that is Jessica Jones and what separates it from an MCU film, what separates it from Daredevil as well to date. We've only seen one episode, 53, 57 minutes, not even. And it really is the opening scene is film noir, 1920s, New York, with that overlay of kind of the monologue of Jessica discussing it.
Yeah.
I think it's very much a detective show, and they plant that seed straight away.
Yeah.
Like anyone will understand that. Like I was expecting it to go black and white at some point, and wisps of mist and steam coming through a sewer grate coming as she strode in her fedora and trench coat.
Yeah.
I was expecting when we saw the Alias Investigations door. Now, I do know now that it was a panel for shot, directly out of Alias, the comic book. But I was expecting the door to kind of magically open, and there's her with her kind of cigarette hanging out of her mouth, silhouetted with kind of like legs up on the desk, and go, "Howdy, dame." I was expecting that, and I think that they nailed it. This is a gritty, realistic portrayal with a nice kind of MCU overlay where we're going to have people jumping tall buildings in a single bound. But it's...
Or maybe two bounds.
Oh, two bounds, yeah. Like she got to at least, the third story in the one of those jumps. But I think that was the nice. I think everyone, we always noticed the art direction, the videography in Daredevil. I think we talked about it within episode 1 straight away. And I feel we need to talk about Jessica Jones. I think this is going to be a darker, more gritty, realistic, but I don't think that there's a layer of comedy in there that we're going to enjoy. It's more sarcastic. It's more kind of adult, which we can probably talk more about the adult themes later. But I think that's just one of the things. I think it was they are setting this up as that kind of it's not a hero of the week investigations. It's more of this is a film noir 1920 style investigation film.
Yeah, definitely. It definitely had reminded me of Sin City, the Frank Miller book, and obviously the Robert Rodriguez film and Frank Miller film. Had that style of the voiceover of the A Dame to Kill For, I think is the storyline they took it from, or that they made, excuse me. But yeah, there's definitely that style. There's an instant feeling of film noir, definitely a feeling of the Sam Slade kind of detective. I love the line where she, in her opening monologue, where she's essentially saying, people do bad shit, I just avoid getting involved. It really tells you all you need to know about the character of Jessica Jones, that she's very standoffish. We definitely know throughout this episode, but the fact that she is essentially standoffish because people are going to hurt you if you let them get close. So just don't let them get close. Don't get anywhere near them.
Yeah, like I loved the down and out feel that you always expect of this hard done by PI, smoking the cigar. I love the fact, she is down and out to an extent. She's dealing with stuff. She's got, She likes her whiskey. There's all of that. I loved how, like, the pan towards the Alias Investigations window and you hear the chit chat from behind the glass, about, you've ruined my life. Well, you asked me to go and investigate a case and you don't like what I found. There's the over, narration by Jessica Jones saying, people have to either deal with it or don't deal with it or whatever.
It never works out for them when they go for it.
Exactly. And it all felt like this private investigator feel. Even her snapping the two cheating people under the bridge with all the smoke and the wisps. It really sort of set it up nicely that, this is her job. She's good at it. It really gave that noir feel, that PI feel as well. And a great introduction for the titled character, Jessica Jones. Really good. I love the fact that she says, she excels at looking at the worst in people, this idea that she sees maybe everything through a negative lens. There's just some really great quips coming back to the humor. New York is the city that never sleeps. Yeah, right. The city that likes to sleep around. Kind of, like really good kind of humor there. Like really good.
2 minutes on a treadmill, 20 minutes on a quarter pounder.
Yeah.
That was just for me. I just cracked up and that's the Sam Slade styled kind of comment. I was like, that's if the humor is staying like that, then I'm going to enjoy those kind of sarcastic bits.
Yeah, definitely. It's one of those things, like you say, there's a humor in there. There's humor in the Avengers films, but I don't get it as much as I get this kind of humor, because this is very much my type of humor.
Yeah.
I think it's all of our kind of sarcastic little bit. I'd love to be as quippy and as quick as she is with her quips. It would
if
be
we
great.
have a team of writers, we just get some two guys following us around going, you should say this next.
Absolutely. Have the Cyrano de Bergerac kind of stuff. Yeah, I definitely agree with you, Chris. I don't want to give a huge prop to S.J. Clarkson, the director of this episode. She got the tone completely right in this episode of how you direct this kind of noir and PI style. Really good point, Chris. John, do you want to give us your first point?
Yeah, I'm going to go for a biggie. It's the influence of Kilgrave.
Oh, yes.
The man who kind of remains unnamed for most of this episode. But I love how the purple fades in or bleeds into the shots every time he's kind of awakening and coming back into Jessica's mind. Mm. Like it's one of those things where I think the Marvel writers, the showrunners, they're not taking the easy route. You had Daredevil where they had to put on screen how someone, or the idea of someone who's blind in Matt Murdock, and how he sees the world through the world of fire and senses, the soft focus, all that kind of thing. And here they're having to try and put onto screen this theme of someone who's psychologically trying to break into your mind and control you. And that bleed in of the purple is just amazing. And a bit like with Daredevil, I remember it being one of my points that, Wilson Fisk was not on screen for, I think the first 4 episodes. And yet he had such an influence about this man who was controlling, Hell's Kitchen and being this sort of shadowy figure. And again, we have this here. David Tennant is like amazing. It's just creepy. He's driving this story. You can see how much he's affected Jessica Jones, how he's affecting the other people in this episode. Absolutely. What he brings, like Jessica is ready to get a flight out of New York to the Far East to get away from him. She's running to her friends to get money in order to like get away from him.
Yeah.
Like whatever he did to Jessica or whatever he made her do, is really menacing and troubling for her. And like this to me was like a great introduction, with hardly any screen time, for this character of Kilgrave. And, again, it's the power of the thought of what's going on in someone's head that you're sort of drawn into this. I mean, I loved the corridor scene, for example, which was in the trailer where she's flicked the fire alarm on, you've got the flashing lights, and then it just like, boom, like switches to this purple and the silhouette of Kilgrave there, and how she's trying to focus back down to take her out of that moment, out of that sort of psychological trauma in terms of recounting all the road names from presumably a childhood or a happy time in her life. Like really, really good. I thought that was like awesome in this episode.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that little touch, and we don't find out early enough in the episode, or very early in the episode, what it is and why she's reciting the names of the streets. But essentially it comes from a psychologist or a psychiatrist. I do always get those confused. Who's essentially told her that the streets around her home, the safest place she felt was when she was at home. Rename the names of those streets around where you live, and that'll keep you in that safe place so that he can't get to you. You're absolutely right. I love that little touch. And I love at the first time you see Kilgrave is really early on in the episode. It's when she's taking photographs of Luke Cage, and he comes in and says, you want to do it. Basically, it's a just do it, Jessica kind of thing. Really creepy kind of moment.
Yeah, and I think we're dancing around the creepiest, which was the bit that all of us went, ugh. It's the lick when she's asleep. That brings it to a whole new kind of adult level. Like they could have just had him whisper in her ear when she's asleep, like, "Wake up, Jessica. Yeah. Wake up." But it was more, nope, we're going to go full in. It was just creepy.
Absolutely.
They could have gone somewhere in between. They could have toned it down, but no, they went very max, very heavy on that. And that just really showed the level of the villainy of who Kilgrave is. Mm-hmm. He takes what he wants. He does what he wants. Cause like he's even, see, Kilgrave and, sorry, guys, for our listeners out there, I'm very an Easter egg kind of Marvel nut. Kilgrave was, like, he's a Daredevil for 1964. It was his first appearance. He was a minor character with just mind control powers who was completely purple. Mm-hmm. He wore purple suits and he was purple. It wasn't until Bendis and Gaydos brought him back in Alias, kind of, I think it was issue 24, that they brought him from obscurity back and made him this very creepy, psychologically horrible character.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, like, they've taken this guy who, mind control powers, we all kind of go, it's nice, but then this is what happens when someone gets these powers and is a bit weird anyway, and then starts to use them in a bad way.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's definitely that psychological trauma aspect of it. It's that idea that, it's like being broken into in your own home. That lick. She's asleep. She's in her home. She feels safe, and all of a sudden she's taken out of that comfort and thrown back to this traumatic period that she's got to deal with by thinking it, or it actually sort of being imparted on her by Kilgrave, this lick to her. And I mean, we hear that they thought he was dead, that they had seen the body, and I think, was it him being buried? So all of this...
Death certificate, wasn't it?
Yeah, so all of this is like hugely traumatic as soon as she realizes that he's back, and like that adds a real tension and a real like drive to this episode, which is really, really good. Derek, what's your first point?
My first point, I'm going to bring one of mine a little bit further up, I suppose, because it is also about Kilgrave, so nice tie-in with your one. It is just how they talk about his powers in this episode. We don't see Kilgrave on screen as such. We see memories of him. We see discussions about him a lot. And we see obviously the flashes that you were talking about, but one of those which describes the powers really well, I think, is my first point. It's essentially when Jessica goes to Mizu, the Chinese restaurant, which used to be Il Rosso, the Italian restaurant, and the maitre d' there is explaining what happened when Kilgrave went there with Hope, who he is kidnapped. I love this description because it gives a real impression of what the powers do and what the controlling is like. So the maitre d' says that he's gotten himself a bottle of $500 wine for free. He's gotten his favorite table in the restaurant, even though somebody else was sitting there. The maitre d' lost his mind and threw them out of the restaurant. He then got the chef, who's an Oriental fusion chef, to cook his favorite meal from Il Rosso, the Italian restaurant, for him. The chef went out, found the recipe and cooked it for him in the restaurant. So all those things. This is what people would do if you had mind control powers. You would go and set yourself up with a beautiful woman for the night, get a beautiful restaurant, your favorite restaurant, have your favorite meal and get a beautiful bottle of wine. But look at the impact it has on the characters around. Look what happens to the maitre d'. He thinks he's lost his mind. He thinks he's gone crazy. He's done something he would never do, which is throw out somebody who's already in the restaurant out of there. The chef, who's not even an Italian chef, went out and cooked a completely different meal that wasn't on the menu for this guy because of the influence he has on him. I love that. I love that they've taken mind control powers, how we would use them if you had what's your favorite superpower, how would you use it, and turned it into something really creepy and scary for this character.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that they, as kind of I discussed, when you think about the pantheon of superhero powers, mind control, okay, Professor X kind of does it well, but obviously you can't allude to him because that's Fox. Or mutants. But no, the bit I think they're going to do a lot around on this series is Stockholm Syndrome. You've been kidnapped, you grow to love and care about. This is more, what if you didn't? This is forced Stockholm Syndrome. So you get PTSD after. And I think that was, specifically that restaurant example was the one, again, another creepy bit was smile, Jessica.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, then that comes back later on with hope. And I think that's going to be one of the lines that's going to kind of travel through the whole series.
Yeah, absolutely. Not only is he getting the things that he wants to make his life better, he's also trying to tell people to enjoy it. He's also telling people to smile, to show on their face that they're enjoying it as much as he is. Creepy stuff.
Creepy.
Yeah, and I think in that instant, it also kind of looks slightly like a bit of a cool power that you could, like, say, I want that Star Wars figure. It's very Jedi. It's like, it's really, like, really good in that sense. But obviously, he's using it for pure menace and evil, you know?
These aren't the defenders you are looking for.
Yeah, wouldn't the Black Friday experience be so much easier if you could walk through the crowds and go, I want that television and you want to give it to me? Yeah, okay, grand.
Exactly.
And I want it for free, you know? It would be so much easier experience for everybody going on those shopping trips. Chris, do you want to give us your second point?
Sure. I'm going to stick kind of with the tone, and it's very much how adult this series is. It's straight away. Okay, we've got the PI. That could have been taken a very more comedic element to it. Nope. This is she's now an alcoholic almost. Jessica, that she's downing bottles of whiskey. Those like 2 bottles, different brands as well. I think you mentioned.
Absolutely,
John.
yeah. She's not fussy with the whiskey brand. It's Jim Beam, and I think Cutty Sark is by the bedside table. So,
Is Cutty Sark a good one?
It's a Scotch.
Oh, okay.
It does need an Irish whiskey. They need a Jameson.
We'll see. I think we'll see Jameson. If not, listen up, Melissa. Get it in there. Reshoot.
Yeah, I think they've replaced the old adage of, you know, the cigarette and whiskey with just a whiskey and a whiskey. I think.
Yeah.
No, the best part was when she took the bottle and then she had that sports bottle, and there's like, 'cause she was running out to a bit of reconnaissance, and then she just emptied the full bottle of whiskey into this metallic tin. I was like, yeah, okay.
I was wondering whether there was already some Coke in there or something, but I don't think Jessica's a mixer kind of person.
No, oh, God, no, not with Jim Beam. And I think, yeah, this is going to be a very, like, I think we're going to discuss probably later the love sex relationship kind of points, but I think this show is very much going to have the adult undertone. Like, you could allow a 16, 17-year-old, 15-year-old to watch this. They wouldn't get all of it. But I think as an adult, kind of once you're in your late 20s, kind of 30s, you're going to say, okay, she's suffering from PTSD, like post-traumatic stress disorder. That is a real thing. And they're going to drag her down to the breaker even more than she is now in episode 1.
Absolutely.
Like they're talking about Stockholm Syndrome with this kidnapping. I think one of the key things was when knowing the Marvel Universe and knowing some of the background origins, connections between Jessica Jones and Kilgrave, there's a very ominous elephant in the room in the storyline, which everyone is like, we've all discussed slightly either on the fringes because you don't want to talk about it, which is a forced encounter, if we want to call it that. And I was pretty sure up until before watching episode 1, I was like, they're not going to do this.
Yeah.
They're not going to, maybe they'll allude to it, in some kind of flashback, but you'll never see it. You'll never hear about it. It will just be kind of there and unspoken. No, my gut's now telling me this is going to be a major part of the storyline. It's going to be spoken about. Hell, it might even be shown.
Yeah, I did get a text from Chris last night, just before the episodes were airing. Like, episodes were airing in 12 hours, and I got a text from Chris last night going, how far do you think they're going to push this show? Do you think they're going to show that big moment? And I'm going, you're going to have to watch, Chris. There are definitely very intense adult scenes in this episode. I think they can go as far as they want to with this show. It's definitely made for adults, yeah.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, I think that definitely comes on to one of my points, and that's the relationships, but also just the fact that they have this implicit and explicit sexuality, the real, the flirting and so on is actually really refreshing to see. You know, it's a natural part of any relationship, whether it's loving, whether it's violent, whether it's tense. You know, these things happen within relationships. And I think we see and we know about all those different facets of it. And I think this is really, really great to see Marvel taking that handle and saying that, you know, people do have sex, and they have sex for various reasons, because they just want a physical thing, an emotional thing, or it's a power thing, and all these things coming together. I mean, you know, at the end of the day, we haven't seen a scene like that between Jessica Jones and Luke Cage in a Marvel film.
Absolutely.
At all. Like, that is a proper, like, noir film kind of take and look at a sexual encounter. Like, that's really good. You have Jaren Hogarth, played by Carrie-Anne Moss, who has a lesbian relationship with one of her interns or secretaries or clerical workers, but is also in a relationship. And that harks back to this whole thing, right at the start, where New York is a city that likes to sleep around, that Jessica talks about. Then you have the Kilgrave element from the comics, which, you know, has kind of been alluded to in the sense that we know there's a troubled past there between Jessica and Kilgrave. It's not been taken as far as we know it is in the comics, but it's there and it's present. Yeah. It's driving Jessica Jones's fear to get on a plane and get out of Hong Kong.
Yeah, I would definitely say that the lick is an indication of how invasive already we're seeing this. We probably will see it a bit more invasive later on in the series as those characters get a bit closer, I suppose. But yeah, definitely there's some invasiveness there.
Yeah, and even then with Trish Walker and Jessica, you know, is that just a friendship? Is it a relationship that's been there in the past, or is it just maybe a superhero thing of, you know, coming together and being together and empathizing with one another? But again, all these relationships I think are excellent. Yeah. And the fact that they are also showing that sexual aspect to it is great, I think.
Yeah, I think what Daredevil did for violence, or for the MCU violence, in terms of it was very bloody, it was wham bam, and not in a thank you ma'am. It was just like the spike in the head, remember?
Yeah.
The car door scene, as you remember, reminded me about. I've completely forgot about the car door scene.
That still lives with me.
Who wants a shake? But no, I think this is going to have the adult tones. I think you'll watch this and kind of go, okay, I see where they're going with it, and I think it's right. As I said, Marvel did the Max series, and that was a fantastic run with Punisher and all that.
Nick Fury.
And Nick Fury. Sorry, I always forget about
Nick Fury. It's one of the best runs.
I think it's because there's an audience there. So I think some younger generations will enjoy this for what it is. It's a slightly Marvel-esque kind of detective show. I think older generation comic book fans will get that this is trying to show the universe in a darker, the dark side of the Marvel universe. And then I think from what I can guess so far, I think the Law and Order Special Victims Unit type of audience will enjoy this show as well, because it's got Law and Order, but special victims, and then it's got some superpowers sprinkled in just for everyone else.
Yeah, I mean, I think just coming back to the sex scene as well,
Always.
Absolutely. It was like, it was pretty hot, actually. And I mean, quite frankly, I love the, this slight lady and this big hulking sort of pumped man together. And I love I loved how, she says, don't worry, I won't break. It's kind of alluding to, the unbreakable Luke Cage and so on. And I know we had that chat immediately after about whether, does Luke Cage already have his powers here? Yeah. It kind of alludes within that intimate moment that he does. He doesn't want to hurt her.
Absolutely. He says, I am going to hurt you if I go any harder, I suppose, would be the way we'd say it.
Deeper, faster, better.
But there's almost that allusion to the fact that he is already superpowered, and she's telling him, I'm superpowered, so the two of us work very well together, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. And, of course, I don't want to bring it down to base, but, I did spot within the cupboard in the bathroom after the sex scene, there was a little jar of Vaseline as well.
Oh, yeah. Giggity, giggity.
While the rest of us
you can always take that out if you think.
While the rest of us were looking at the photograph that was in there.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. The rest of us go, oh my God, what's that? Is that part of his origin story? He's like, ooh, Vaseline. Yeah. I think that sex scene set the tone in that it was very much, okay, this is what you're going to get. This is the types of psychological stuff you're going to see. This is the types of mind messing you're going to see.
Absolutely.
Oh, here's some of the sex scenes you're going to see.
Yeah.
I love how Luke Cage and Jessica Jones went straight from flirting in the bar to sex in his apartment. And I was like, that's real life.
Absolutely.
The gritty side of real life.
And one of the things that people were always worried about Disney buying Marvel, that this would have a huge effect on how these movies and TV shows were going, that Disney would Disneyfy them. There is no way possible 20 years ago or 10 years ago that Disney would allow these kind of scenes in their shows. They would definitely have, something big has to happen beforehand. They have to go on 5 or 6 dates before they end off in each other's apartment, That's not the same now.
Although I would love to see some of the Jessica Jones versions of the Disney princesses. That would be amazing. Princess Jasmine, Sleeping Beauty, like on a night out on the town, getting teared up, going home with all the men. Like I'm pretty sure there is pornos like set around those. I'd still like to see the TV show.
I'm sure there are, but as well, can I just bring it back to actually one of my other points as well?
Okay.
Just because I think it links in, and it's something Chris has said, which is one of my favourite scenes because it's both bringing Jessica Jones's character and Luke Cage's character is the lead up to the sex scene. The whole flirting in the bar.
Absolutely.
I think, it starts off with a great line from Luke Cage, which is, there's a lot of bull from such a small woman. And, Jessica is probing and trying to sort of investigate Luke Cage, and she asks, have you got family friends that live around here? And he goes, no, I've got regulars. And it's a great line.
Yeah.
And there's just this lovely back and forth between the two of them, which I think really develops their relationship, really develops each individual characters, as kind of Jessica Jones kind of picks Luke Cage apart, that she goes, you'll allow someone to be sick over you, but if they break something intentionally, then you will go after them. There's memories in this bar, but there's no memorabilia, and you care for this dive bar.
Yeah.
It's a really great thing that builds up this tension between the two leading to that sex scene. And, Luke is kind of going, this is how you flirt, isn't it? This is what you're doing. I just love that scene. That for me was one of the best scenes, in this episode as well.
Yeah.
And what it leads to as a defining moment maybe for Marvel on TV or Marvel anywhere is fantastic.
Yeah. And I love that Jessica's response to him telling her that's how you flirt is, I don't flirt, I just tell you what I want. And then it cuts straight to the sex scene, which I think is brilliant. A beautiful moment for Jessica, essentially just to assert herself. as a woman in this moment going, well, I'm telling you what I want. You don't have to play coy with me. You don't have to do anything. I want to go to bed with you, and it's going to happen, essentially. So, yeah, really, really good.
On that, though, I think the actress choice with Ritter is just damn.
She is perfect.
Definitely.
She has what I've always imagined Jessica Jones' tone and style and vocalization and directness, which you see in the comics between herself and Luke Cage, and her and Coulter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when that chemistry, I was a bit worried. I didn't think there would be chemistry.
Really?
Like you kind of see like no, there's chemistry there. Like that's a well thought out casting choice. And the two of them are fantastic actors. The bit I like is obviously Ritter was known for many films and TV shows, but the bitch in Apartment 23, she's channeling elements of that.
Really?
And I think just skipping to the very end when she turns around and looks in when the camera pans and she's looking at the camera, then she walks back in. That's very much the bitch is back.
Right.
I'm not going anywhere. And I was like, that's what you expect from this hardened kind of whiskey drinking PI.
Yeah, definitely. And it kind of brings me on to my next point, which is about Luke Cage himself. That character is great. Really enjoy him. And I totally agree with the casting of Christian Ritter being brilliant, but the casting of Mike Coulter here, I think we saw photographs of him just after he'd been cast, and instantly I went, that's our Luke Cage. I totally see it. I get it. I can see how he can even hold his own show already just from these couple of scenes that are in here. But my actual point is really about the portrayal of men in the episode. And up until Luke Cage, we got no good men in here, which I think is really interesting. No dependable men, nobody that was really honest and working with Jessica. We had the father of the kidnapped daughter, who's more worried about her door and fixing it than he is about telling her the story of the daughter that's been kidnapped. We had the useless college student who essentially gets slapped across the face.
That's brilliant.
In a hilarious moment because he's trying to make his arty project. They're useless background characters to all the strong female characters in here.
Malcolm.
And I think that's brilliant. Malcolm, I will talk about later on because I love him. I think he's great already.
But he's trouble.
He's useless. He's useless again. And I love this. There's a test that's done on Hollywood films by some groups essentially that talk about, whether a film passes the test of, can a woman go through more than one scene in a film that doesn't talk about a boyfriend or doesn't relate to the main male protagonist in that show or TV show. That
don't they all
movie.
talk about the boyfriends in like? Sorry,
Isn't
I'm
that
only
the point?
joking,
Yeah.
but like.
But it's amazing how much of a proportion of movies fail that test. It's over 95% of films have the female character talking about the male character or the male protagonist in those shows. It's so refreshing to see that this isn't dependent on a male character. You've got Sharon Hogarth, who's a lesbian, as John mentioned, who is surrounded by females around her. You've got Kristen Ritter's character of Jessica, whose best friend is Trish Walker. It's not another male. The only other male in her life is, as you said, Malcolm, who is a complete loser, who has nothing useful for her, but he's local to her. And then the first person that she meets in the show that we see is Luke Cage, the first male that's actually dependable and can spar with her, and there's a really good rapport between the two. And I think that's really fascinating to see. And
is she investigating him?
That's an interesting one.
Yeah, I had that as well because she talks about an ex case.
Yeah.
That she wants to go out. Like she's just gotten into bed and like there's obviously stuff whirring around in her head. She gets up, she fills the flask with whiskey, she goes out, and then she's kind of got the camera trained on a building, but then it focuses on Luke Cage. And I was just like, she talks about she just can't let it go. And is it just purely that Luke Cage was a previous investigation or is an ongoing investigation? Or is it just that she's spotted him for a while now and she's wanted to sort of hook up with him?
Yeah.
Like, I thought the same thing as like, is that why she's investigating this?
Yeah, and that's why I thought. So I actually think there's going to be, you're right, they're basically, it's not a feminist bra burning type show, but it is. There are useless men or evil men. I think Luke Cage is going to fall in the possible middle. He may be a mark from a previous case. or he was cheating on, or we see a woman come out of the bar. Could that be his wife? And then he's just gone and Jessica's entrapped him and slept with him.
Maybe.
Not meaning to do it, meaning to just keep an eye, and then she fell in love with him, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Could it be he's married?
Maybe. I took it slightly differently. I don't know why. Maybe it's just the seeing it the second time, or just knowing that there's such a pressure on Jessica from her past. The way I was kind of seeing it is she investigating him to make sure that he won't hurt her before she approaches him for a conversation? So he says that he sees her outside the bar very often, but she never comes in. And invites her in for free drinks, essentially, for the night.
Yeah.
Great flirting way. That's it. Any bartenders out there, that's obviously how you get your women. Bring them indoors and ply them full of alcohol. But I do like that. I wonder, is she investigating him not because of a case, but because she wants to make sure this isn't going to be someone that hurts him, wants to make sure that he is the right kind of man for her. I just thought that was quite an interesting touch.
Yeah.
But yeah.
No.
Yeah, definitely. And of course, let's not forget the other useless man, the one that she's actually trying to serve papers to for Jaren Hogarth. Fantastic, where it's, I'll melt your insides with laser beams and all that. And she's like, moron.
Laser eyes.
Yeah. Like, she just goes, what a moron, as she walks away. Like, that's the most useless of those men. Like, I think, in fairness to the father, I think he might be deflecting from his anxiety over his lost daughter, Hope. That's why he's fiddling with the door.
Yeah.
But it's his wife who is focused on making sure that the daughter is found, definitely.
Exactly. You can't even build up the strength to talk to Jessica. The worst thing, listeners, about going third in a podcast where it's a 5-point podcast is somebody always steals your points just before you say them, and sometimes doesn't give them your full point. So I'm going to jump in and throw in my point at my favorite scene in the episode. I think we've all talked about favorite scenes so far, but my favorite scene is serving the summons to Sferris. It's lots of S's. But I love it, particularly because he calls out something that one of our listeners had a question about, which is, why is Jessica Jones ignored in this world if she has superpowers? And he calls it out. Sferris says to her, I'm going to tell everybody you have superpowers. I'm going to tell everybody you held up the car, you threatened me with your violent acts, and you'll be thrown out of hiding and everybody will hate you. And she calls it out immediately. She says, nobody cares, because nobody wants to believe that a little woman like me can do all of this stuff. Nobody will believe you, essentially. I love that little call out to the fact that she is part of this wider Avengers universe, this wider Marvel superhero universe. She has powers, and he's trying to threaten her with it. But this isn't like X-Men. This isn't like Heroes, where revealing her secret identity as a superhero is going to ruin her life. Her life's pretty much ruined already. She's a hard drinking woman who is pretty much destroyed. She doesn't care what anybody thinks of her, and she'll use her powers to get a paycheck, essentially.
Yeah, and so I'm going to jump in on this one because it was one of my points. Superpowers as a whole in the MCU. So we're pretty much expected to believe that the timeline with our current, where we are now, present day, is pretty much similar. So what? 2002 was the Avengers. So Iron Man.
Wow, 2002, is it that long ago? Wow, that's a long time, isn't it?
I'll double check.
And
I'll basically put it in on the next or later in the episode. But so what we're saying is this is still a new thing. Like it's a decade of kind of superheroes, but what you're seeing is it's used to probably only the big guys. So obviously in Civil War oh my God, sorry, it was 2008.
Oh, right.
Okay, that's a bit better, right? So it's 8 years ago.
Yeah.
They've only seen like the attack on New York City. We've seen in obviously Age of Ultron, which is this is set after Age of Ultron. There was an attack there. They're only seeing these world changing. And there's probably only people who are going, the man in the iron suit, the guy with the magical hammer, like a guy who turns green. They're not seeing little Miss Jones walking down. And superpowers are new. Superpowers are scary, but they don't care. They still will shrug it off. And I think that's part of what this show will be about, which is nobody's going to believe in superpowers at the first go. And when they do, that's when they're going to get scared. Yeah. So like, that's, I think, also how they'll bring in the Iron Fist magical elements, which is like, Madame Gao is doing all this crazy stuff, but no one thinks this little old lady's doing it, and they think people are like, you're taking drugs, or you're drunk, or you're crazy.
Yeah.
And like, how because we saw Jessica, she jumped like what 2 stories, or did she fly 2 stories? We need to figure that one out.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully we'll see her fly, because I want her to fly.
Okay. We'll see.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think they'll do the flying in this, because it's a bit too hero-esque then if they do it.
Yeah, we'll see. There is also Supergirl on TV at the moment as well. So I'm liking how they show her powers in this episode. Definitely.
Yeah, lifting the car was brilliant, and just holding. Did you see? She was holding the finger with the car door.
Oh, that was brilliant.
Yeah,
he was just kept pushing it back.
Yeah, but then she just had her finger against it.
Yeah.
So obviously he was still trying to push, and she was just holding it with her like finger.
Yeah.
It's like. It's going to be interesting, I think, how they portray superpowers in this, and how the world of the MCU Netflix, we'll call it MCU,
maybe, yeah,
the Netflix MCU.
Yep.
How that's going to react to a girl who just picked up a car, to a guy who can control other people.
Yeah.
And I think you said it when with the waiter part at the beginning of the when we saw the Kilgrave, well, we didn't see Kilgrave, we heard Kilgrave talk to Jessica in this flashback scene. The maitre d' was like, I don't know, I'm going crazy, why did I kick people out? He's not open to some guy just mind controlled me.
Absolutely.
And I think that's going to be interesting.
Definitely.
Like, can we see, will a cop pull a gun on another cop because Kilgrave told him to? It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, I love the subtlety of the superpowers in this. Like, Daredevil has them as well, but they're much more under the radar. Pardon the pun. Definitely, it's really much more subtle. Hers are much more obvious to people if you can fly or if you have super strength. Daredevil's are much more pared back and internal to how he operates, because otherwise he primarily has the martial arts element that drives his physical presence in the world. Here, Jessica Jones, like, even with the door handles, breaking the door handle off and saying, oh, the door was open, and all this kind of thing. I thought it was a really nice, subtle way of introducing her superhero powers. The fact that she can do some of these extraordinary things, but not taking it too far. At least not at this stage, and maybe building it up. It'll be interesting to see how it pans out over the other 12 episodes.
Yeah, and I know we don't know how she got her superpowers. I think in Daredevil they waited till episode 2 to talk about how he got the superpowers, or did they? Or was it a little bit in episode 1 as well? The flashback to him as a child. Was that how it opened? So in this episode, am I right in saying this is the first Marvel character that is in the world with their superpowers, and we haven't seen their origin in their intro? Because I don't think we've seen any origin. Iron Man has a suit which he built himself. Captain America was given the super soldier serum, so he wasn't born with this, essentially. Daredevil was created after having the accident. Thor is from another planet.
Hulk, Hulk
is an experiment as well.
But is Ang Lee's, is that canon?
Pretty much. The Ed Norton one is definitely canon. So,
but we didn't see the origin.
So they said in that, they said it was an experiment that went wrong. So is Jessica the first superpowered human now that we don't have an origin of her powers? Has she always had these? I'm interested to know.
And maybe there's 2 as well with Luke Cage. So
and Kilgrave,
yeah, and Kilgrave, yeah. So this could be a whole show of powered individuals that are coming out of the woodwork. So that could be really interesting.
Yeah.
So, Chris, what's your next point?
Okay, I'm going to go very quickly into it, and it's one that I have a serious gripe with.
Okay.
We're back to gifted individuals. Just Marvel and Disney have enough money. They bought Star Wars. Okay, it's not Activision's and Candy Crush type money, which was like 8.2 billion.
Wow.
But it was more than Star Wars. Disney buying Star Wars for that Activision Candy Crush acquisition. Sorry, I got really business nerdy on there for really nerdy things too. But it's they need to buy the rights back for superheroes or special, or because we've got
mutants, maybe
mutants. That's what I want, because what do you have? You have enhanced in Marvel's Agents of Shield, which is in the same universe. It's MCU, so why don't they just call it that? Because I know you brought up a point, because that's Inhumans.
Yes,
they have to use that for the Inhumans when explaining. So. What? So we're going to have a second round now of people, which is just going to be gifted. Are you gifted or are you enhanced?
Yeah.
But then what does that make Bucky? What does that make?
They're miracles. There wasn't. The miracles was the other one as well.
Yes, Miracles was used for Inhumans before the Enhanced. I think it comes from Joss Whedon's run on X-Men, which the arc for that was called The Gifted, essentially. So I think they may have just taken the term and expanded it into the universe so they don't have to use the term mutants, which they don't own, unfortunately. I think it's possibly that, but it is an interesting point, isn't it? But I like it, and because I kind of look at it in the way they used it in The Walking Dead, where they don't call dead people zombies, because they never saw a zombie movie or a zombie TV show. And every group they encounter across the course of that series and across the course of those books, every group has a different name for the characters. Sometimes it's walkers, sometimes it's something else, because that's their experience and they've come up with their own word for it. So in these pockets of the Marvel Universe, the reason why they don't call them particular examples is because it's still quite small. I know it seems like it shouldn't be after 8 films, but it's still quite small. There's still quite a small number of people involved, and there's nothing splashed across the front of the Daily Bugle that tells you what to call these characters. I'm calling you gifted because, well, you are gifted to me because you're better at running or better at jumping than I am. So you're gifted at that. But yeah, I think it's an interesting point.
Yeah, I think they need to, because the canon's getting bigger, the universe is getting bigger with each new property, they need to pick something. Because what you have, and I know my girlfriend is she's gonna hear the word gifted, and I've tried to explain that enhanced is actually Inhumans and they're part of the Terrigen Mist and they're kind of aliens biology and they got Kree, and she just doesn't get it. It's just like, whoom. Yeah. And it's only because I have a fascination with the Marvel Universe and all the comics and love the connected parts of it. But no, they need to settle soon. Because additionally, we chatted about this over text yesterday before the show, before it came out, is like, will we see cameos from Coulson or Daisy? Or we know we'll probably see kind of Matt Murdock or his alter ego Daredevil at some point. Maybe. Because they'll keep the Netflix. But will they bring in the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.? And if they do, will they use the word gifted or enhance? Will Daisy turn around and go, oh, you're gifted. You're enhanced too. I'm like, I'm not enhanced, I'm gifted. Right. Oh, no, well, okay, well, I'm enhanced. Well, were we different? We're not different? Yeah. Neither of them, we haven't talked about mutants yet. I know. Like, they're not even in the universe. Yeah. We've got just people with superhero powers. I know. And, we got Thor as an alien.
Yes.
Okay, different. But no, I just think they need to...
He's a god. No, he's not a god.
He's not a god. He's an alien. No, they just... I think we just need to pick a term and stick to it.
That's interesting.
As an audience, we need to go, okay, you're going to use the word enhanced, you're going to use the word gifted, we're going to see, just pick a bucket, and we're going to catch all term like, oh, you're a pen. Good. Okay. So going forward, I'm going to refer to all superhero powers or superhero people as pens.
I think this is going to be how the Civil War starts over the term for music. It's Daisy versus Jessica. Jessica wants to call herself gifted, and Daisy wants to call herself enhanced. And that's how the Civil War begins. Whose side are you on, listeners? John, do you want to give us your next point?
Yeah, I'm sat here with my Iron Fist t-shirt on, and I see that Jaren Hogarth, Carrie-Anne Moss is here. Another link to the Iron Fist, and this is basically as well on the back of the news that Joe Quesada has said that Marvel and Netflix are still developing Iron Fist. You know, there have been rumors that this may have been shelved and may have been scrapped, but we had Madame Gao and the Steel Serpent symbol in Daredevil. We now have a gender-bending Jaren Hogarth as Carrie-Anne Moss, and the Iron Fist connection there. Her character is ultimately a legal firm. It's a lawyer who hopefully has connections to Danny Rand. So for me, this is really cool.
Yeah,
it's really good. You know, she's there in the law firm, and it's Hogarth Chow. So there is an Eastern influence there. And there's a third partner, which I actually can't remember. I didn't take that down in my notes, but there's three partners there.
I think I did it. Denowitz, I think.
And Denowitz. So it's Hogarth, Chow, and Denowitz. That's the legal partnership. And this, to me, is a great little nugget of information that here we have Jaron Hogarth, who may come and become the CEO of Rand Corp. All those elements just being teased here as well, connected with Jessica Jones, and obviously even just having Luke Cage there, who is one of Danny Rand's friends in Heroes for Hire. Fantastic. So I'm a happy bunny as well here at the moment in relation to Iron Fist coming down the line in the Marvel Netflix schedule in the future.
I like that they're continuing the connections again to Iron Fist and setting it up. They might as well. They've got some episodes to talk about. I don't think there's going to be a huge amount in Jessica Jones. Probably going to be a lot in Luke Cage setting up Iron Fist. But really good spot there, John.
So Derek, what's your next point?
My next point is about Hope. Erin Moriarty playing the character. Really, I'm going to leave the bigger point to somebody else, but I have to just say the casting of this actress in the part is fantastic. For me, it gave me that instant moment of, she's a college student, really good career, and she's been kidnapped, and everybody's just ignoring it. Her best friend is ignoring it, saying some guy's involved, doesn't matter. Her parents are kind of ignoring it because she's calling them every week. The actual actress who's playing this part is doing a fantastic job. I saw her heart break in moments later on in the episode, which I think one of you guys has the point for. I saw the moment when she's confronted by Jessica and asked to leave the clutches of Kilgrave. The moment when she tells her, "I can't leave because he told me to stay and I've wet the bed." It's a real interesting moment because it could come across as a kind of funny moment, but she plays it as, "I'm totally trapped here and you don't understand," to everybody around her, that nobody else would understand what she's going through. I understood it from her face, from her expression, and from the acting of this actress. Such a well-cast part. Fantastic work from this actress who I've never seen in anything else before. Delighted to see this character in there.
Yeah, she was really, really good. I mean, I loved the scene where, Kilgrave's still in her mind. She's been 5 hours on the bed in the hotel room. And Jessica is trying to get her out of the hotel room. And that irrational fight with Jessica Jones to just stay in this bedroom.
Yeah.
And the only reason it's resolved is because she's knocked out on the door frame. Like, I loved that. I thought that was a really cool little scene, actually.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Chris, what's your next point?
Trish Walker.
Yeah.
So I think, in some of the comic books, Jessica Jones did have a brief stint as a journalist with her. I don't think she's going to do that. She won't have had that background in this. I think we see that Trish Walker's talk show, Trish Talk, was on a bus. So I think Trish is going to be the media side of this kind of series.
Yeah.
I think we don't know that relationship, but you alluded to it. Could they be ex-lovers? Could they be just best friends? So for our listeners out there, Trish Walker is canon from the Marvel Universe. She's also known as Hellcat. She is a superhero. She had psychic powers. She is a fighter. She does have psychic powers in the comic books. So I'm wondering, are they best friends? How much does she? Seems like she knows all about the Kilgrave story background.
Yeah.
Did Trish Walker save her? Is Trish gifted as well already? And just hiding it. What is the background? What does she know? But I'm just that's the side story I want right now.
Yeah.
I want to know more about that. I love the actress. She's one of the very much, her face, but can't point to where she was, before. But I think it's going to be interesting. I would love to see her don the Hellcat, some kind of Hellcat costume. I don't know if we're costumes level. Daredevil waited till the very last
Yeah.
episode, so I don't think we're gonna get the Jewel costume. I don't think we're gonna get Power Man's armor straight away.
We did get Luke Cage in his yellow shirt right at the start of the episode, which I thought was a nice little touch.
Yeah, but I want him in a silver headband with like the
You want his
flares.
afro back.
I do.
After
I want Afro Power Man. Like, if we're gonna do this, we're gonna do funky where he goes "Sweet Christmas." Like, it's just gonna be really bad. But no, I think that was fantastic. I think that's something interesting. I want to see where that goes.
Yeah, totally agree. Trish Walker's character is a really interesting one. I like how fully formed the character is. It's not their best friends because they call each other every night on the phone. They're best friends because she does know about Kilgrave. She knows everything that Jessica's gone through, and Jessica's ignored her for months, and then turns up on her doorstep, well, on her windowsill, at night, and asks her for quite a lot of money to pay for a trip to another country. And she says to her, "I haven't heard from you in months, but the money's yours." So they are best friends because there's an existing history and a really deep connection there between the two of them. Not because they talk about boyfriends every night. It's a good connection and a good character again.
And Trish is the one that puts the little sort of nugget of an idea in Jessica's mind that maybe she should stay and fight.
Yeah.
And help other people who really can't deal with Kilgrave. There's this idea that Jessica at least has some way of being able to deal with him, to break the spell that he can hold on people, and that she should try and use that in order to help other people who really aren't able to do that. So I really like that little bit as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. And okay, so the question is, I know we talked about it very quickly in the synopsis. She's an ex-superhero. Mm-hmm. Is she an ex-superhero? Is that confirmed? Did she do a stint in a costume already and she's now down and out?
She says it to Luke, yeah. She says it to Luke. I've tried it before. That's what got me into this. This is my new job. When she says that she's a PI. So she's confirming she was a superhero at some point. So
well, that was in the trailer.
No, that was in the conversation in the bar.
She never mentioned, but she didn't mention superhero.
She didn't mention superhero. She said she's done that before. The PI part is her new job.
Yeah.
She's trying to settle into it. So my feeling, and we'll probably get it in a later episode, I don't want to go into too much because we'll have nothing to talk about in the future episodes. My feeling is that this is why Kilgrave may have targeted her.
Yeah,
essentially.
okay.
He found out that she had powers and he targeted her. So we'll see that probably in a future episode. We haven't seen any episodes, so we're hopefully not spoiling anything that may be a shock.
What I'm putting money down is Trish has something to do with the superhero element.
Right.
Because they're best friends. She's a talk show host. She may be psychic, have powers as well.
Yeah.
I think was there a Jewel and Hellcat team up back in the day when they were 20-year-olds?
There is an Avenger in the comic books, and again, don't want to spoil the comic books either, but there is an Avenger in the comic book that I think Trish's character is replacing. That is Jessica's confidant as well. So
yes.
Yeah, there's definitely another character they're very similar to. But on that, John, I think we're on to our final point. John, what's your final point?
I am doing the biggie, the shocking end.
What a moment.
Like, both disturbing, hugely cruel to Hope, menacing. I mean, up till this point, there's been that build where as soon as Jessica realizes who's involved, that there's this underlying menace. And now, at the moment where she feels she's combated it and saved Hope, and at the end, Hope says to her, "You saved my life." It's a big hug, going away with the parents, and it is ripped from both Hope and from Jessica, that sense of accomplishment, of triumph over Kilgrave, with the mind control that is still dormant within Hope's mind, and she shoots her parents. And that final moment where the lift, the elevator doors open, and she kind of looks at Jessica and says, "Smile." And then suddenly the spell is gone. Yeah. She's got a gun in her hand. Her mom and dad are brutally killed by her own hand, although not by her own will. And she just sinks to the floor crying and so on. Like, it is really cruel, a cruel, shocking ending, and something that really sets up just quite how far the menace and control that Kilgrave can have over people will go. Like, brilliant ending, and it's such a great twist. Like, I loved it. I absolutely loved it for just like pulling you off balance. The happy ending doesn't happen. I loved it. Really good.
It's interesting, isn't it? A scene like that can change the tone of an entire episode that you've watched. I was looking at this when we were at New York Comic Con. I was thinking, this is quite a good intro show for these characters. Loving the characters, loving the interplay between them. Yeah, okay, there's a background character of Kilgrave. We'll see him in a future episode. We'll see what he does. This is grand. This is a nice intro. She saves the day. Off they go into the lift. She's going to maybe move offices or something to get away from Kilgrave because he knows where she stays. And then that happens. And it changed the whole episode for me. I realized this is not going to be a show of happy endings. This is going to be a show of a really tough character fighting back against something insurmountable for her in the past. So I think it really did change the episode for me and I loved it. And I will say the hush that came over the crowd in New York Comic Con at that scene and the gasps in an audience of 5,000 people seeing this for the first time was phenomenal to experience. And I think the hush lasted right the way through to the end of the episode. Credits rolled. There was a nice pause for a second or two, and then the applause and cheering started. So I can see why the reaction was that strong to this episode. Chris, what did you think?
Yeah, no, I very much agree with you. I had a slight fear. Not fear is too strong of a word. When it was closing, the elevator's closing, everything was happy. I was like, oh, we're going to have like 12 episodes of a case an episode with some allusion to Kilgrave and the past, and she's going to do all these different investigations, and she's going to happily close it. I thought we may be getting that, and I was like, that's not going to be fantastic. I'll go with it. As soon as that smile creeped onto the girl's face, onto Hope's face, I was like, nope, it's going, nope. Oh, god damn it. Yeah. they right in the fields.
Yeah.
And it was like, but then the writers, the cinematography twisted it so amazingly in that it's like her line when it was like, smile, Jessica.
Yeah.
And then when Jessica goes out, and the camera pans from in front of her to behind her, and you can see her doing the inner monologue, kind of like, no, I'm going to say, and she then struts or strolls or bursts back in. Strides, yeah. Strides back in. I think you're right. It was, that ending was powerful enough to twist the whole episode on its head.
Yeah.
In that, you're right. I now think this is going to be the brutal, this is the brutal version of Daredevil. This is a psychological version. Daredevil uses his fists. His fists, violence solved most of the problems.
Yeah.
This is going to be the one that makes you kind of sit down and go, okay, we're going to need like 20 minutes, guys, before I can talk about this, because I need to digest what just happened to this episode.
And we did, listeners. So I think that's all the points we have on this episode of Jessica Jones. We're really looking forward to the next episode. Anybody have any little notes to talk about? Just some short points?
I'm putting a note out to our listeners. Basically, if you've heard me before when we did Daredevil, I love to pull out all the Easter eggs. Obviously, we had Alias Investigations as one in this one, but there's a few more that I'm pretty sure I missed. I'm going to do a small as my topic in episode 2, where I'll pull out some of the episode 1 and episode 2 Easter eggs. But if you find Easter eggs that I've missed, call them out. Absolutely. Literally just pull them out there, and then we'll throw them in and we'll read that out in our feedback.
Yeah, and just send those into feedback at defenderstvpodcast.com.
Yeah, I've got one note. It probably gives me a slight reputation. I've already talked about the sex scene, but I loved it when she sat on the toilet doing the investigation and trying to find out where her target is going to be so that she can serve the papers. It's just like
funny little touch.
Really, really funny. We've all had that moment where we've been sat on the toilet and the mobile phone has gone off, and it's like, do I answer it? Do I not answer it? And
we all have that.
She's sat there, she's putting on the sort of the voice to get that information from the other person at the other end of the phone. And I just kind of loved that working of the case, committed to it 24/7. Even when she's gone to the loo, she's still working the case. Fantastic little, just fun thing, yeah.
Well, some of our listeners have wondered why we don't have a dial-in number for these shows. There's the reason.
No. And now it puts a whole new light into my previous conversations with you, John. I'm like going to be thinking, like, where is he now? Where is he answering it?
Yeah, never phone in. And of course, there was no loo roll.
Now that is a problem I've had before.
Yeah, that can be problematic.
Yeah.
Well, if you have a B-day and you're in Europe.
She's gone paperless as well because she's on the computer in there. So
Yeah.
I just got a couple of little notes to talk about. One of the ones which I did mention earlier on a little bit, but it's Malcolm. This character just made me laugh. It's essentially it looks like a guy who lives in her building. Our introduction to the character, who we know is a central character to the show. He's one of the he's called out in the opening titles as well. An actor by the name of Eka Darville's playing him. But he's a heroin addict. Basically, you can see that from some of the makeup that he's got that's been done for the character. You can see his lips. Yeah, you can see the lips are white. You can see the track marks on his arms. But I love the intro to this character is, what are you doing in my apartment? It's not your apartment. This is my apartment. Oh, okay. And
that's why the peanut butter is smooth.
That's it. Yeah. That's why the peanut butter is smooth. Yeah. And then later on, you can have my TV. No, you're okay. You can keep it. Oh, well, I stole it anyway. I kind of thought so. This character is providing a little bit of comic relief so far in the couple of scenes that he was in here, and I'm really looking forward to seeing him again like that. And my final point, which is one that we didn't actually mention, is the music for the episode. My God, it shows the intensity so well. The guy who's doing the music for the show is brilliant. The really intense, the discordant kind of violins they're playing as Jessica's trying to track down Kilgrave. You can tell that she's being dragged along. The heartbeat is pounding through the music. It's fantastic, and the intensity of it really had an effect on me watching this episode particularly, and definitely in those scenes of the investigation where Jessica is trying to track down Kilgrave, where she's in the taxi trying to get out of the city, and the intensity is rising and rising as she's thinking back on what's going on. Fantastic music. Really looking forward to more of that.
Definitely. Well, I think that is our discussion of episode 1 of Jessica Jones. So it's just for me to then ask, Derek, do you defend episode 1 of Jessica Jones, aka Ladies' Night?
Absolutely. Wow, we saw this episode a month and a half ago and couldn't talk about it to anybody. We're delighted to have been able to share our thoughts, and my instant reaction after walking out of that auditorium was, I can't wait to watch the next episode. I can't wait to watch the series, and I can't wait for tons of people to have watched it. It's brilliant. I love it. I absolutely love it. So I defend.
So Chris, do you defend Jessica Jones episode 1?
100%. 100%. This was the opening I was looking for in this series. Mm-hmm. It shocked. It made me giggle. It made me cringe. It made me shudder with the lick. It has all the elements, and it hasn't at this point. It's pointing in all the right directions. Mm-hmm. Based on Daredevil's trajectory, we'll see 2 or 3 episodes go up, and then we'll have a couple of kind of filler episodes maybe. But I don't think so. I think they've learned their lessons. I think this is the beginning. Mm-hmm. I think this is just going to crescendo into this massive 13 episode and finale. And I think if this is what they opened with, I can't wait for episode 2, can't wait for episode 3. Yep. I want to binge, but you guys never allow me.
And John, do you defend this episode of Jessica Jones?
I do defend this episode of Jessica Jones. I'm going to give the episode 4.5 bottles of whiskey out of 5.
Wow.
So a light night for us there with half a bottle remaining. Mm-hmm. Love this. I love the fact that there are ladies in the show front and center, and powerful, troubled, delicate. And this is, in my view, the true element of strong ladies, but also who have weaknesses and are able to express them. Mm-hmm. This is really well done. And maybe you could argue, you can see that there is a woman's touch at the hand of the showrunner. Definitely. I love the menace of Kilgrave. I absolutely adored the bar scene between Luke and Jessica, and how that moved into something that is ultimately exploring such a common adult theme of sexuality and sex and relationships. Absolutely fantastic. but it's all wrapped up with some great witty humor, some real adult sarcasm as well. And this is from just episode 1. It seems to be a great show, and I can't wait to see how they build on that or maintain this through the rest of the episodes that we'll be bringing to you. So yeah, I absolutely defend Jessica Jones episode 1.
I think it's time to pull out the competition winner for our competition. We asked our listeners in one of our earlier episodes, I think episode 30, to leave us a review on iTunes. Everybody that did leave a review on iTunes has gone into the hat now. Thanks so much for all the reviews. We got reviews from quite a lot of people. We got reviews from Rebecca, from David, from Thomas, from Alex, from GMB Alpha, from Danny, from Sylvie, and from Claire. Thank you so much. They're all across iTunes, across Canada, America, the UK. Fantastic. Really, thank you so much for sending those in. John, do you want to pull a name out for the master prize? So this is the prize, which is the Jessica Jones comic, the Jessica Jones poster, Daredevil Season 2 poster, Agent Carter Season 2 poster, and a couple of other little things in there, I think, as well.
Okay, so here from our competition Balti Bowl. There you go, Derek.
And our first winner is Sylvie. Thank you so much.
Woo! Congratulations.
Congratulations, Sylvie. We'll be in contact with you. We'll need to get your address. Obviously, send those over to you. Thank you so much for your review. It's really good.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I think John actually mentioned we have a couple other of the Jessica Jones comic books, which are only available at New York Comic Con, that we want to give away. Chris, do you want to pull the next one?
And the winner is...
Oh, our next winner is David Harks. Thank you, David. That comic will be in contact with you again to get your address, and we'll be sending that comic out to you.
Cool. And then we have our final one. Derek, do you want to shuffle the Balti Bowl? Thank you. And the winner we have here is Alex, spelt AHHLEKS. So we'll be in touch again to find out where we can send on the comic.
Thank you so much for all your entries. We'll probably have another competition later on in our coverage of Jessica Jones. Thank you so much for leaving a review for us on iTunes. It does help other people find the podcast. Really good of you. And really good of you to listen to the podcast as well. If anybody else wants to follow us on iTunes and leave us a review, again, always helps the podcast. Just go to defenderstvpodcast.com/iTunes, which is the direct link, or obviously search for Jessica Jones podcast on iTunes. You'll find it there. You can also follow us on any other good podcast catcher like Beyond Pod, Player FM, Podcast Addict, and Stitcher. You can find us under Defenders TV Podcast. Thanks so much for listening to this episode. We want to hear your feedback. Send that to feedback@defenderstvpodcast.com. I have a little bit of feedback from last week's episode. I don't think people have caught up on the first episode of Jessica Jones just yet, so we haven't got any feedback in it. But feedback from last episode from Ronaldo in Australia. He says, Punisher Warzone, Ghost Rider 2 and Fantastic Four 2 are my guilty pleasures. So that was in relation to John's guilty pleasure of a movie for G.I. Joe Retaliation, wasn't it?
It was.
Chris,
fantastic movie.
Do you have any Marvel related guilty pleasures, Chris?
Okay, I'm gonna be very honest to everyone. Old Benifer in Daredevil.
There you go.
I'm sorry, the extended cut, what was it, the full director's edition, the 2 and a bit hours, it's cheesy, it's just naff, but it's so good. And then even the dancing scene in Spider-Man 3 with Tobey Maguire.
Wow.
Right. They're the bad ones that cringeworthy, but you just go, yeah, I like it when he's swaggering down the street. But then, back to the Daredevil, the guiltiest part, which I still think is the fight scene in the park.
Oh, wow.
Where it's so cheesy, it's so naff, it's the two of them, like, she's beating up a blind guy in the middle of a kid's playground. No one's bats an eyelid, but I'm like, yeah, I'm rolling with this. This is cool.
Nice.
They're balancing on 2 seesaws. Obviously, that's going to end well. But no, and that's my guilty pleasure.
Yeah, we reviewed that on episode 2 of the podcast as well, didn't we? So you'll hear our thoughts as to whether it's a guilty pleasure or not over there.
There was definitely the sandbags on the rope. That was a fairly guilty misdemeanor for any director to put that into a film. But Ronaldo also is a man of great taste, because he does continue to say that He also has a guilty pleasure, which is Doctor Strange for Defenders 2, he goes on to say. And he goes, hashtag I'm with John. Great taste, Ronaldo. Absolutely great taste. Man of quality is Ronaldo. Definitely.
Absolutely. And continuing the trend of having 31 episodes of our podcast and Doctor Strange mentioned on every one. And our crossover episode that we did, the Defenders podcast, John also mentioned Doctor Strange. So we haven't gone through an episode without mentioning Doctor Strange.
You got Nick Fury in everyone pretty much too.
Yeah, that is my guilty pleasure, actually, the David Hasselhoff Nick Fury. The first time I went to America, I sought out a place that had a bootleg copy of that movie just to see it, because I'd never seen it. There wasn't the internet at the time to download a bootleg copy of it. I bought that and I have watched it many times.
There was what? No internet?
The dial-up.
Yeah. It would have taken about 6 weeks to download it, but it was worth it.
No, it wasn't.
Derek got his Morse code copy direct from the Telegraph.
David runs, stop. Picks up gun, stop. Aims, stop.
And on that bombshell, I think we'll close out this episode. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you so much for listening. Can't wait to be back in a very short moment of time for episode 2.
Yeah, we're hoping you're enjoying your binge watch.
Yeah, don't forget to Netflix and chill with this lovely podcast as well.
Absolutely. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Great stuff, guys. This has been a Flickering Myth Podcast Network production. For more information, head over to flickeringmyth.com for more shows like it. Find this show in iTunes by searching for the podcast name, and head over to youtube.com/flickeringmyth to subscribe to the Flickering Myth movie show. We'll see you on the next podcast. Take care. Bye-bye.